Hey everybody, this video is going to be on inputs. Inputs allow us to ask the user questions, receive a response from them, and then do something with that response later on in our program. We do this by using a function called input, where we give it some information about the question that we're going to ask. Pretty much exactly like a print statement. But we have to do a little bit more. In this case, we call input and we enter the parameter. And then whatever the user enters, we're going to go ahead and store that inside of name so we can use that later on. So if we run this, we get this cursor now. And if we type in Steve and hit enter, now the program's over. So as soon as I hit enter after typing in Steve, it ends up being exactly like this. So understand that inputs will always return a string, in this case, the word Steve. Now, sometimes we want to go ahead and use that information to maybe ask more questions or to store some data in a database or whatever. So one of the things we can do is we can ask the user for their age. But now let's go ahead and ask them in such a way that we actually use the name that they gave us. So we're going to use an F string for this one. And we're going to say, hey, name, what is your age? And if we go ahead and run this, then we can enter Steve again, and then 44, and then all is good. So it used Steve to ask the next question. So that's pretty cool. Now we want to go ahead and combine these two results into like a full sentence. So we're going to go ahead and do a print statement. Or we're going to say, we're using F string again. We're going to say, hey, name, you will be age plus 1 years old next year. Okay, so let's see what happens here. So now we're using both of these variables. Go ahead and run it, Steve, 33, and we get an error. And this error tells us that we can only concatenate strings to strings. We cannot concatenate integers to strings. So where are we using an integer? And we're using an integer right here. And we're trying to concatenate because age is technically a string. Now, how do I know that it's a string? Well, I can do print type age. And then let me just comment this out and go ahead and run that. Steve, 33. And it says that it's a string. So age really is a string because inputs always give you strings, or they always return strings, just like Red Bull always gives you wings. So what we need to do is, in order for us to add 1 to the age, we're going to have to convert age to an integer so that it can do this addition. And the way we can do that is by using the int function. The int function takes a parameter. In this case, we're going to give it a string of age. Now, this doesn't end up doing anything long term. So we still get an error if we run this. So although it did convert it to an integer, it didn't permanently convert it to an integer because we never restored what's being returned here, which is the number, back inside of age. So we have to do age equals again. So now whatever was an age before is now going to be overwritten by the integer value of age. And now we have an integer plus another integer, and then it should do the addition and show us the proper response. So we do 33. It says, Steve, you'll be 34 years old next year. So that ended up working. So remember that inputs are much like print statements, but you get the cursor where you can type something. We can go ahead and use F strings inside of inputs, just like we can for print statements. And always remember that inputs return a string. So if you want it to be a number, like an integer, or if you want it to be a decimal, you can use float. But if you want to store those as integers, you're going to have to go ahead and convert it so that we can use it later on by doing some addition or check if something is greater than or less than it. Sometimes people put these on one line, they combine them into one line. So instead of putting this right here, sometimes people put int and then put this entire thing inside of quotes. So maybe not right away because it looks kind of confusing because we have a function inside of another function. So it's up to you if you want to put it on one line to save a line, or if readability is more important to you. So you can just get rid of that big long thing and make them 2 lines instead. Now that you guys learned about inputs, which is really cool, you guys can also learn about if statements, which are essential for all programming languages. You can do that right over here, or you guys can go back and learn how to print statements to the screen. You can do that right around here. All right, take care, everybody.